Most historians will tell you Rome fell because of barbarian invasions, weak emperors, or bad plumbing. But that's a lie. The truth is far darker. Rome didn't collapse because of swords or politics. It collapsed because of the most ruthless and unstoppable force in human nature: female mate selection pushed to its extreme. Once you understand this hidden story, you'll never look at history or the modern world the same way again. Close your eyes. Forget smartphones, streaming, airplanes, hospitals, democracy, the comfort of modern life. Strip away the world you know. Picture Rome in the late 4th and 5th centuries, when the empire was not yet ashes, but the fire was already eating it alive from the inside. The air no longer carries the confidence of empire. It carries something else, an anxious silence broken by the tramp of foreign boots and the whisper of betrayal in the night. It smells of smoke from villas burned by raiders, of grain rotting in warehouses because the roads are unsafe to travel, of fear clinging to people like sweat. The aqueducts that once carried water with divine precision are failing. The great public baths are abandoned, weeds creeping over marble. The money, once stamped with the glory of Caesars, is now thin, cheap, almost worthless. Gold flows outward to pay barbarian mercenaries. Copper flows back, mocking the Roman people who cannot even buy bread. The emperor does not stand among the people he claims to rule. He hides in Ravenna, a swamp-ringed fortress far from the heart of Rome, surrounded not by legions of Romans, but by courtiers and eunuchs. He rules in name, but everyone knows real power is scattered, among generals, among warlords, among men who pretend loyalty until a higher bidder arrives. And the legions, the pride of Rome, once feared from Scotland to Syria, are no longer Roman. They are filled with mercenaries, Goths, Huns, Franks, Vandals. They do not fight for Rome, they fight for silver, for plunder, for promises whispered by desperate emperors. The eagle standards still shine, but the arms that carry them are foreign. This is not collapse in a single night. There is no great explosion, no sudden fall. This is erosion, slow and merciless. This is death by 1,000 cuts. Each raid, each betrayal, each famine is another wound on the body of Rome. The empire bleeds, and no one knows how to stop it. And in this chaos, human nature does not evolve, it reverts. Civilization is a thin skin stretched over something older, something primal. When the aqueducts dry, when the coins lose meaning, when soldiers desert, when law is just ink on parchment, that skin tears. What lies beneath is the raw law of survival. Strip away the marble, the laws, the civility, the rhetoric of senators, the sermons of bishops. What remains is older than Rome, older than Greece, older than every empire before and after. What remains is hunger. What remains is fear. What remains is the primal struggle for survival. And at the center of that struggle is one truth: women choose survival. When the empire weakens, when men die in wars, when property burns, when borders collapse, women do not ask about ideals of patriotism or loyalty to a crumbling state. They seek protection, food, and the promise of survival for themselves and their children. The strongest men, the most ruthless warlords, the conquerors who can guarantee life in exchange for loyalty, these are the ones women choose. This choice reshapes everything. Bloodlines shift, old aristocracies wither. The sons of senators fade into obscurity, while the sons of raiders inherit the future. The empire collapses not just in palaces or on battlefields, but in the most intimate choices of the household. Rome does not fall because barbarians break its gates. Rome falls because women, facing the chaos, place their future in the arms of the strong, no matter where they come from. Civilization is fragile. Empire is temporary, but human nature, raw, merciless, and ancient, endures. Rome's marble crumbles, its laws turn to dust, its armies scatter like smoke. But the primal law remains, and at its core is survival. Decimus versus Alaric. Imagine you are Decimus, a young Roman scholar. Born into a proud family of lawyers and civil servants, you carry the weight of centuries on your shoulders. Your father raised you not on tales of war, but on Cicero's speeches and Virgil's verses. You were told Rome is eternal, that words and reason are stronger than the sword. Your life has been carved in the marble of tradition. You are betrothed to Claudia, a girl you've known since childhood. She is the daughter of a senator, her beauty matched only by her refinement. Your love story is one of poetry and promises, of strolling beneath colonnades and exchanging verses whispered in gardens. You dream not of conquest, but of a household filled with scrolls, debates, and children raised on the old Roman virtues of duty, order, and reason. Now meet Alaric. He is no scholar, no citizen, no son of Rome. He is a Gothic warlord. He does not recite poetry, he swings a sword with hands scarred by battle. He does not wear robes, he reeks of leather, steel, sweat, and blood. He does not speak of ideals, he takes what he wants. Where Decimus' ink stains parchment, Alaric's blade stains earth. The contrast could not be sharper. Decimus is Rome's past, educated, idealistic, soft in the ways of survival. Alaric is Rome's future, raw, violent, untamed, forged in the crucible of chaos. And then the walls fall. The unthinkable happens. The great gates of Rome, once thought invincible, are breached. The Praetorian Guard vanish into the night, their loyalty long since purchased and spent. Senators flee with whatever gold they can carry. The marble avenues echo not with rhetoric, but with screams. The streets are chaos. Flames lick the night sky. Temples are looted, villas ransacked, households torn apart. The empire's laws are powerless. The aqueducts that once carried water carry rats. In that moment, Claudia is not thinking about Cicero. She is not remembering the verses Decimus once whispered in her ear. She is thinking about survival, and survival is not with Decimus, the scholar with soft hands and softer ideals. What use are his speeches now? What use is reason when the mob howls and steel rules? Survival is with Alaric, the man who commands the chaos, the man whose presence alone means protection from the slaughter, the man who represents strength when strength is all that matters. This is hypergamy stripped bare, not romance, not sentiment, not love in the soft sense that Decimus believed eternal. This is biology and calculation, the brutal arithmetic of resources, protection, and power. Claudia's choice is not personal betrayal, it is the law of survival written into the marrow of human nature. And Decimus, the scholar, watches as the world he was raised to believe eternal crumbles before his eyes. His education, his lineage, his refinement, all useless against the law of the strong. The war bride phenomenon is not a theory here. It is reality, played out on a civilizational scale. Rome, for all its marble and majesty, is no longer the future. The future belongs to men like Alaric and to the women who choose them. Civilization falls not just in palaces or on battlefields, but in the choices made in the shadows of collapse. Decimus and Alaric are not just two men, they are symbols. One represents the fading dream of order. The other embodies the ruthless truth of power. And in the end, Rome does not fall because barbarians storm the gates. Rome falls because, when the walls break and survival is at stake, Claudia does not choose Decimus, she chooses Alaric. History speaks. The Romans themselves saw it. Their writers raged about moral decay. They lamented Roman women marrying barbarians. They called it betrayal, weakness, shame. But they missed the point. It wasn't betrayal, it was biology. Salvian, a Christian writer of the 5th century, left us a line that cuts through the noise. Noble Roman women preferred life as wives of barbarians rather than concubines of weak Romans. Think about that. Foreign power, even wrapped in furs and blood, was worth more than collapsing loyalty at home. Barbarian strength, however brutal, was safer than Roman weakness disguised in silk. This was not shame, it was strategy, and it wasn't sudden. The fall of Rome was not a single night of fire. It was a slow unraveling, thread by thread. It began when the Roman coin lost its silver, when the denarius became a hollow promise, debased until it was barely worth the metal it was stamped on. A lifetime of saving and duty could vanish in the stroke of a mint. It began when the middle-class man lost his value. The scholar, the civil servant, the shopkeeper, the very men who once formed the backbone of Rome, found themselves powerless in a system that no longer rewarded their virtues. They were literate, dutiful, industrious. But when famine struck, when raiders came, when the legions deserted, what could they offer? Meanwhile, generals, warlords, and mercenary chiefs grew stronger. They held not titles carved in stone, but power carved at sword point. Their worth was measured in men who followed them, in gold seized from raids, in the fear they commanded. Women saw the difference. They always do. They did not gamble their future on parchment promises, on coins that rang hollow, on men who spoke of duty but could not defend it. They did what survival demanded. They bet on strength. They read the political weather more clearly than any senator ever could. While senators debated, women calculated. While emperors issued decrees, women adapted. Hypergamy, in its rawest form, was not vanity or romance, it was foresight. It was reading the truth that Rome was too proud to admit. The empire was dying, and only men of power, however foreign, however brutal, could guarantee a future. This is what history whispers beneath the ruins. That love bends before survival. That loyalty bends before protection. That biology bends for no empire. Rome did not just fall at the hands of barbarians. Rome fell in the private choices of its women, choices that revealed the truth long before the walls ever broke. The modern echo sound familiar? It should, because history never dies, it echoes. The faces change, the technology changes, the scenery changes, but the instincts remain. Today, our systems are cracking. The old pillars we were told to trust creak under their own weight. Inflation quietly devours savings built over decades, turning hard work into dust. Institutions that once commanded reverence, government, media, universities, crumble in credibility and bleed trust daily. The promises of stability sound thinner with each passing year. And what of the good men? The modern Decimus, the steady provider, the man who follows the rules, the man who builds his life on order and patience, is mocked, overlooked, dismissed. His loyalty is cheap because the system that once rewarded it now spits it back in his face. Degrees don't guarantee respect. A lifetime of work doesn't guarantee dignity. His virtues, discipline, reason, patience, read like a dead language. Meanwhile, new warlords rise, not with swords and fire, but with followers, platforms, algorithms, crypto, and raw social power. They do not conquer with spears, they conquer attention. They do not mint coins in silver, they mint digital kingdoms that can't be taxed or contained. They do not sit in senates, they build empires on screens watched by millions. And women, as always, see the shift faster than men. Female choice at scale is shifting once again. It always does when the ground beneath society trembles. Survival today is not about who commands legions, it's about who commands networks. Who can bend attention, who can summon resources, who can stand above the collapse rather than be buried beneath it. The battlefield has changed. The marble is replaced with glass. The scroll is replaced with the screen. The legion is replaced with the follower count. But the instinct, the primal law, has not. It is the same instinct that whispered in Claudia's ear when the gates of Rome fell. It is the same instinct that drove noble women to choose the barbarian warlord over the collapsing senator. It is the instinct that measures survival, not sentiment. Power, not poetry. Security, not ceremony. Men cling to the illusion that civilizations are eternal. Women, more often than not, see clearly when the tide is turning. They do not gamble on collapse, they gamble on strength. And so the modern Decimus writes his essays, files his taxes. The Byzantine game. But the story doesn't end with the fall of Rome. Empires do not vanish overnight, they transform. And in the east, behind the triple walls of Constantinople, the game evolved into something even darker, subtler, and far more enduring. Here, women didn't just choose protectors, they became power itself. The Roman world that survived in Byzantium was not the Rome of legions and marble forums. It was a world of intrigue, theology, spies, assassins, eunuchs, and endless palace games. Swords still mattered, but whispers mattered more. And in this arena, women were no longer just choosing strength, they were shaping it, channeling it, weaponizing it. The empress, the concubine, the mother of the heir, these were not ornaments. They were hidden players, moving emperors like pawns, playing a game that spanned generations. Bloodlines were rewritten not just in battlefields, but in bedrooms. The throne of Constantinople was as much a marriage prize as it was a military conquest. This was hypergamy refined, sharpened, and turned into statecraft. Think of Theodora. Born the daughter of a bearkeeper, condemned to the circus life of an actress and prostitute. a world of humiliation, poverty, and survival on the edge. By every Roman standard, she was nothing, disposable, forgotten. A shadow at the margins of empire, but she was not nothing. She was watching, learning, calculating. When she met Justinian, he was not yet emperor. He was ambitious, brilliant, but incomplete. With Theodora at his side, he was transformed. She leapt from the filth of the circus to the gold of the palace. But her genius was not the leap itself. It was what she did once she landed. She refused to be silent. She refused to play the ornamental role of a submissive empress. She counseled, she argued, she shaped policy, she commanded loyalty. She was not merely Justinian's wife, she was his co-sovereign. And when the empire itself trembled, her will was harder than his. In 532, Constantinople erupted in flames during the Nika riots. The mob surged, demanding Justinian's abdication. His advisors urged him to flee across the sea, to abandon the throne, to survive at the cost of the crown. The emperor himself wavered. It was Theodora who stood unflinching. She told him words that cut through centuries. Royalty is a fine burial shroud. Better to die as emperor than live as a fugitive. Better to gamble everything in fire and blood than watch it slip away. Her defiance became his courage. He stayed. And in the Hippodrome, 30,000 rebels were slaughtered in a single afternoon. From that day forward, Justinian ruled with absolute power. He built the Hagia Sophia, codified Roman law, and restored the empire's might. But none of it would have happened if Theodora had not stared into the abyss and refused to blink. The bearkeeper's daughter became the most powerful woman in the world, not because she married an emperor, but because she turned a man into one. This was the Byzantine game. Hypergamy no longer just about survival and collapse as it was in Rome. It was about domination in stability. Women were no longer fleeing weak men for strong ones, they were shaping the very definitions of strength itself. The lesson was clear. When civilizations evolve, so does strategy. When swords and walls are not enough, power flows through influence, loyalty, and the unseen hand behind the throne. And in Constantinople, that unseen hand was often feminine. The Dark Lesson. This is hypergamy's final form. Not mere survival, not mere protection, but domination. It is the shaping of empires from the bedroom to the battlefield. It is the transformation of private instinct into public destiny. For every Theodora whose name blazed across history, there were countless others, concubines, empresses, mothers of heirs, and queens of whispers, who played the Byzantine game with merciless precision. They did not simply marry into power, they maneuvered within it, redirected it, redefined it. Byzantium was not merely ruled by emperors, it was haunted by empresses. Some ruled openly, some ruled silently, but all were feared. Consider Irene of Athens. She did not accept the role of consort or mother. She seized the purple for herself, blinding her own son to hold the throne. The empire bowed not to a man, but to a woman who understood that survival is not granted, it is taken. Consider Zoe and Theodora, sisters who outlived 3 husbands and dozens of court conspiracies, shaping the empire across decades not by armies, but by persistence, cunning, and alliances crafted in silk-draped chambers. Even emperors lived in fear. They commanded armies and decreed laws, yet their fate was often sealed not on the battlefield, but in whispers spoken in the night. A wife who knew their weaknesses, a concubine who held their secrets, a mother whose ambition outweighed maternal love. The knife in the back was often guided by a woman's hand, whether she held it directly or persuaded someone else to strike. Poison in the cup, rumors in the court, a whisper to a general, these could undo years of conquest. And so emperors, even armored and crowned, walked through their palaces as men condemned to uncertainty, never fully in command of their own survival. This was not weakness, it was adaptation. Byzantium survived where Rome had fallen because it learned the truth that Rome ignored. Power is not only what rides on horses or marches in formation. Power is what shapes those horses, commands those marches, and decides which banner flies above them. In Byzantium, women did not simply follow power, they became power. The empire endured for 1,000 years not by brute strength alone, but by weaving power into every corner of life, church, court, and chamber alike. This is the dark lesson of history. Civilizations collapse when they ignore the primal law. Civilizations endure when they bend to it. Rome fell because its women chose survival elsewhere. Byzantium endured because its women were survival, not passive, not secondary, but central. And so the truth reveals itself, sharper than any sword. Empires are not only shaped by generals and emperors, they are shaped in the dark, by women who knew that biology is destiny and that destiny bends nations. The lesson for today. Rome does not speak to us as a distant curiosity. It speaks as a mirror. Its ruins are not relics of a vanished world, but warnings carved in stone. From Rome and Byzantium, two lessons emerge. Lesson 1. The primal truth. In chaos, loyalty is conditional. When the walls break, when food runs short, when money turns to dust, no oath, no poem, no childhood promise will hold. Women will always align with the man who can provide survival here and now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. Decimus lost Claudia not because she betrayed him, but because he could not protect her. Alaric could. That was the only calculation that mattered. Lesson 2. The Byzantine truth. In stability, the game does not end, it only changes form. When the city is safe, when the walls hold, when gold still flows, hypergamy does not disappear. It becomes subtle, psychological, invisible. It moves into whispers in the palace, favors in the court, alliances in the bedchamber. It is no less ruthless for being hidden. Theodora proved that survival can become domination. Byzantium endured for 1,000 years because its women did not merely follow power, they became power. And this is where the modern man stands, between chaos and stability, between Rome's fire and Byzantium's shadow. The modern man must be both. He must be the warrior, physically strong, financially independent, dangerous when needed. He must be capable of violence, even if he rarely uses it. He must be a provider not in words, but in reality, a man whose strength is visible and undeniable. But he must also be the diplomat, the one who reads the room, who moves with social intelligence, who navigates politics, alliances, influence, and perception. He must be strategic, adaptive, and aware that power in the modern world is often invisible. Status, reputation, networks, narrative. Without the warrior, he is Decimus, an idealist crushed by reality. Without the diplomat, he is Alaric, powerful but temporary, destined to be remembered as a barbarian. But with both, he becomes something greater. He becomes Justinian, the man strong enough to value a Theodora at his side, but never weak enough to depend on her. The man who listens to counsel, but makes the final decision himself. The man who can survive riots, rebuild cities, command loyalty, and still outlast the chaos. History is not random. It is not a series of disconnected accidents. It is human nature playing on repeat across the centuries. The faces change, the empires change, the technology changes, but the instincts never do. Rome teaches us what happens when men forget the primal truth. Byzantium teaches us what happens when men forget the Byzantine truth. Ignore both and collapse follows. Learn both and survival and even empire is possible. Because in the end, one rule stands above every marble, every law, every crown. Human nature always wins.